When you're faced with fear, it's easy to hesitate, to retreat into comfort. But here's the truth: most people will never accept. Fear doesn't go away. It never disappears completely. It only changes form. And if you think there's a magical moment where fear just stops gripping you, you're fooling yourself. The world belongs to those who train their minds to conquer fear. And there is no greater example than the Spartans. The Spartans mastered something that most will never understand. They didn't just fight fear, they embraced it. They trained their minds relentlessly, knowing that fear wasn't their enemy. It was their greatest teacher. Every moment they spent preparing for battle was a step toward mastering the fear that could paralyze lesser men. The Spartans mastered something that most will never understand. They didn't just fight fear, they embraced it. They trained their minds relentlessly, knowing that fear wasn't their enemy. It was their greatest teacher. Every moment they spent preparing for battle was a step toward mastering the fear that could paralyze lesser men. But this mindset isn't reserved for ancient warriors. It's for you. Every challenge you face, every moment you hesitate, you have the opportunity to conquer your fear, just like they did. Let's start with Brasidas, a Spartan general who earned his reputation through audacious courage and unmatched tactical skill. What set Brasidas apart wasn't just his strength, it was his mental clarity in the face of chaos. At the Battle of Amphipolis, he led his forces against the Athenians in what should have been a disastrous situation. Yet Brasidas remained unshaken because he had trained his mind to be fearless. Long before that battle ever happened, he didn't wake up that morning hoping fear would magically vanish. He had spent years preparing, training both his body and his mind to remain calm in the heat of battle. Preparation was his weapon against fear. When the enemy outnumbered him, Brasidas didn't flinch. Instead, he relied on his training, on the sharpness of his strategy, and on the mindset that fear is only powerful if you let it rule you. Imagine that level of mental focus in your own life. Think about the moments when fear has stopped you from taking action. What if, instead of freezing, you stepped forward with confidence, knowing that every moment of preparation had built an unshakable foundation? You don't need a battlefield to apply this. Prepare yourself for life's battles, and fear will start losing its grip. Every time you invest in your growth, in sharpening your skills, you're stripping fear of its power. Like Brasidas, you conquer fear with preparation, not by avoiding it. Tyrtaeus wasn't a warrior in the traditional sense, but his poetry inspired warriors to go into battle with unyielding courage. His words were spoken in the mess halls of Sparta before the soldiers marched into battle. What did Tyrtaeus understand that most people don't? Fear can be transformed into power. When fear rises, it creates energy, an energy that can crush you if you let it. Think of fear as a storm. Most people run from the storm, hoping it will pass. But the Spartans, they walked into it. Tyrtaeus taught the Spartans to see fear as fuel. Every fear was a call to sharpen their minds, to prepare themselves for the challenges ahead. They didn't wait for the right conditions. They didn't hope for a calm day to fight. They were always ready because they had already faced their fears through their training and preparation. How often do you let fear stop you from speaking up, from taking the action you know you need to take? When you feel fear, it's a sign that you're about to grow. Run toward it. Use it. When fear enters your mind, recognize that it's giving you the energy you need to overcome it. The power of Tyrtaeus' words was in their simplicity and raw truth. Fight now, fear later. The more you engage with fear, the weaker it becomes. Dionysus, a lesser-known Spartan warrior who fought at the Battle of Thermopylae, faced overwhelming odds that would cripple most men. When he was told that the Persian arrows would blot out the sun, what was his response? He laughed and said, "Good, then we shall fight in the shade." Think about that for a moment. Here was a man facing certain death, and instead of fear, he responded with humor. Why? Because Dionysus understood something crucial. Fear is temporary, but honor is eternal. What does that mean for you? It means that the things you're afraid of, the failures, the rejections, the pain, they're all fleeting. But the actions you take in spite of that fear, those are the things that will last. Every time you push through fear, you build a legacy of courage. Dionysus didn't deny the reality of the danger he faced. He just chose to respond to it in a way that empowered him. Fear didn't own him. He owned it. In your life, there will always be moments where the odds seem impossible, where you feel like you're standing in the shadow of defeat. But like Dionysus, you have the power to choose how you respond. You can let fear dictate your actions, or you can laugh in its face and fight anyway. Fear will always be there, but you decide what it means. You can choose to see it as an obstacle, or you can choose to see it as an opportunity to prove your strength. The Stoics practiced something called the premeditation of evils, premeditatio malorum, a thought exercise where they would vividly imagine the worst possible scenarios in their minds before they ever happened. Spartans lived by this principle. They mentally rehearsed their fears so that when they faced real danger, they were already prepared. They didn't wait for the battle to begin to start conquering fear. They did it in their minds long before. This is where most people go wrong. They wait until the fear shows up to start dealing with it. The Spartans knew better. They faced their fears before they ever set foot on the battlefield, imagining every possible outcome, every hardship, and every injury. By the time the real battle arrived, they were already mentally prepared. Now think about the fears in your life, the things that hold you back. Do you shy away from them, hoping they won't come to pass? Or do you face them head on, preparing yourself mentally for every challenge that might come your way? The key to conquering fear is not avoidance, it's confrontation. Visualize the worst that can happen, and then visualize yourself enduring it with strength. When you rehearse fear, it loses its power. The unknown becomes familiar, and when the moment comes, you won't be caught off guard. You'll be ready. Spartans swore an oath: death before dishonor. This wasn't just a slogan, it was a way of life. Spartans valued their honor more than their lives, and because of that, fear could not control them. They understood that fear of death wasn't the real enemy. Fear of living without purpose was. When you commit to something greater than yourself, when you commit to a higher purpose, fear loses its grip. Spartans believed that living in fear was worse than dying in battle. Why? Because living in fear means you're not truly living. You're just existing, constantly held back by the things you're afraid of. But when you commit to something greater, when you live for a cause, you transcend fear. It no longer controls your decisions. Imagine living your life with that kind of clarity, where fear becomes irrelevant because you're so focused on your mission. Every time fear creeps in, remind yourself of this Spartan oath: death before dishonor. Let that be your guiding principle. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of pain, none of it matters when you're living with purpose. The Spartans didn't just stumble into their fearlessness, they trained for it. The agog, their rigorous education and training program, wasn't just about physical strength, it was about mental toughness. Spartans were conditioned to see fear as a challenge, not a barrier. From a young age, they were taught to face their fears head on. They weren't allowed to back down, no matter how difficult or painful the situation. Every hardship they endured was preparation for the real battles they would face later in life. This mindset of treating fear as part of their training gave them the mental resilience to face anything without flinching. And this applies directly to your life. Every challenge, every fear you encounter is part of your training. It's part of your personal agoge. The more you face your fears, the stronger you become. Discipline is the key to overcoming fear. It's not about waiting for the fear to go away. It's about facing it every day until you realize that fear has no real power over you. Most people live their lives in a constant state of fear-driven paralysis. They allow fear to dictate their every move. They hesitate, procrastinate, and overthink, all because they are more afraid of what could go wrong than excited about what could go right. And it's not because they lack the ability. It's because they lack the mindset to break free from fear's grip. Here's the truth. Fear thrives on hesitation. The more you allow yourself to linger in doubt, the more you let fear grow roots in your mind. That's why so many people never make progress. They're stuck in a loop of what ifs and maybe laters, waiting for the perfect moment to act. But the Spartans didn't wait for perfect conditions to strike. They knew the battlefield would never be perfect. They moved forward anyway. The real tragedy is that the longer you stay in this cycle of fear, the more it becomes your default. You start believing that playing it safe is the right choice, that staying comfortable will protect you. But all it does is keep you small. It keeps you from realizing your true potential. And the worst part, you get used to it. Fear becomes your master, and you convince yourself that it's normal. The Spartans knew this. They saw fear as an enemy to be conquered, not tolerated. They believed that walked every day they spent in fear was a day they were letting the enemy win. You have to adopt that same mindset. The fear that keeps you stuck is robbing you of your life, of the greatness you're capable of achieving. Here's the final truth you need to understand. Fear is not your enemy. It's your teacher. Every time you feel fear, it's a signal that you're about to grow. Fear shows up when you're on the edge of something bigger, something that challenges you to rise to a new level. Spartans didn't run from fear because they understood this. They knew that fear was their guide. It was there to sharpen them, to push them beyond their limits. When you start to see fear as a teacher, rather than something to avoid, you'll realize that every challenge you face is an opportunity for growth. Think about the last time you were afraid to act. What did you learn from that experience? Did you back down, or did you push forward? If you back down, that's okay, but it's a lesson. The next time fear shows up, remind yourself that it's there to help you grow, not to stop you. The more you face fear, the more powerful you become. Every time you feel fear, see it as a lesson. Ask yourself, what is this fear trying to teach me? How can I use it to become stronger, more resilient, more capable? Fear is your greatest asset. When you learn to use it as a tool for growth. Let's be clear, being fearless doesn't mean never feeling fear. It means acting in spite of fear. It means recognizing fear, acknowledging it, and then moving forward anyway. The Spartans weren't fearless because they never experienced fear. They were fearless because they didn't let fear stop them. They trained their minds to embrace fear, to prepare for it, and to use it as fuel for their strength. And that's exactly what you need to do. Train your mind like a Spartan. Prepare for fear before it shows up, and when it does, face it head on. Don't let it paralyze you. Don't let it keep you stuck. Let it sharpen you. Let it push you toward greatness. You're going to face battles in life, battles of uncertainty, of doubt, of fear. But the good news is that you don't have to be a slave to those fears. You can conquer them. Just like the Spartans, you can train your mind to be stronger than any fear that comes your way. And when you do, there's nothing that can stop you. Your mind is the most powerful weapon you have. Use it. Cultivate discipline, embrace discomfort, and face your fears with the mindset of a warrior. Because the truth is, the only thing standing between you and everything you want is fear. And fear, it's nothing compared to the strength you have within you. The Spartans taught us that fear is just another battle to be won. And every battle you win, every fear you face down, you become stronger, more resilient, and more unstoppable. The choice is yours. Will you let fear keep you small, or will you rise up and conquer it like the Spartans who came before you?